Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the post-lunch session. Post-lunch is normally a very challenging time. And I say not because we've had our lunch, but because we've set for ourselves a very, very challenging topic for discussion. We have a very, very eminent panel that I'd be introducing in a minute. But first, let me share with you the topic that we have in front of ourselves for discussion. The topic is inclusive growth. Is it a myth or a reality? We know that many innovative business models have led to development and growth. But the question that we're setting for ourselves is that while we've seen increased opportunities in education, in finance, in choice of livelihood, in health, and access to markets, and we know that it has led to greater entrepreneurial spirit, and it has led to many bottom-up innovative solutions. Has inclusive growth been achieved? And we all, I think, know the answer partially, that it has been achieved, but there is a long way to go. So then the question for the panel is, how can we achieve greater equitable development for those who are underserved and marginalized? And this panel has very, very eminent individuals. Let me start by introducing the exception on this panel, which is Bart Édes. He represents ADB. He is the director of Asian Development Bank's Poverty Reduction, Gender and Social Development Division, and is the chairman of ADB's 220-member Social Development and Poverty Community of Practice. The division provides quality assurance, policy guidance, and technical support to ADB operations on education, gender equity, health, inclusive growth, poverty trends, social dimension of climate change, and social protection in Asia and the Pacific. He's a multi-dimensional personality. He's worked as a journalist, as a policy analyst, and as a specialist on international trade and foreign direct investment. He has a master's degree in public policy from the University of Michigan and a bachelor's degree in government from Georgetown University. Welcome, Bart, to the panel. I have next to Bart, Rekha Mody. She's born in 1955 into the illustrious industrialist family of Modys who built Mody Nagar in Uttar Pradesh in India. Rekha Mody is in her own right a woman who wears more than one hat. She is a connoisseur of art, is a social worker, and is a woman campaigner. She started her education at a laborer's school in Mody Nagar. This was something that her mother enforced. This experience brought her very close to the plight and the pain of the less privileged. She's the founder of Divya Chaya Trust, established in 1984, an art foundation called Happy Art in 1987, and the Parallel Force in 1998. She's also edited a book called A Quest for Roots, which has 300 biographies of women from India who are significant in South Asian history. She serves on the board of United Way New Delhi from 2008 and a Women's Founder Collective US from 2006. Next to Rekha, I have the pleasure of introducing Irma Cosico. She's the Chief Operating Officer of ASKI Global. She has been in the microfinance industry in various capacities for almost 15 years. She was the Managing Director of ABS CBN Bayan Academy from Social Entrepreneurship and Human Resource Development until March 2010. She's also served as a consultant to the ADB, and she was a pioneer of the Alliance of Philippine Partners in Enterprise Development. She took her MS Development Communications in the University of Philippines and a Master in Public Administration in Canada. She also holds a Master in Entrepreneurship degree from the Asian Institute of Management. Welcome, Irma. And with that, I will also introduce the moderator today. If you live in Singapore, you know Penny. And if you're not from Singapore, then you have to allow me to introduce her to the audience. Ms. Penilo has traversed more than 60 countries and is one of the 34 founding members of the New Asian Leaders by the Geneva-based World Economic Forum. She has also been honored as one of the 237 founding members of the prestigious Forum of Global Young Leaders. Ms. Penilo was the youngest elected female member of parliament in Singapore, representing the Pasir Ris Punggol Group Representative Constituency. She's the chairperson of the Government Parliamentary Committee for Ministry of Information, Communication and the Arts, and she also serves the Ministry of Finance, Trade and Industry. She sits on many national committees and is a member of the interparliamentary and friendship groups across the globe. And in her latest avatar has set up Social Innovation Park, a non-profit organization promoting thought leadership in social entrepreneurship in Singapore and beyond. And with that, I'll leave the floor to Penny.
Well, thank you very much, Deepak. That was a very lengthy introduction. Believe all of that 100%, you know, on their part. But for mine, I think a lot of the information were quite dated. So, in any case, you know, I thought about, you know, how we should be conducting this session. And then I realized that the title of the session is really Myth or Reality, Inclusive Growth, right? So I thought, well, then the first thing we have to do is to try to understand what is meant by inclusive growth. Because otherwise, we'll be talking in all directions. And I said, okay, so maybe with that, we will, you know, invite our panelists to give their take on what inclusive growth should be, could be, may look like. Then they could also, you know, talk a little bit about the stuff that they do and how do they work towards inclusive growth. Then on my way here, I said that, but just a minute, that's not very inclusive an approach, is it? There's always panelists and then audience. Why should it be? To be truly inclusive, maybe we should start with you. So, what is inclusive growth? How would you, and I don't think there is a right or wrong answer or that there is one answer. You know, I think it should come from all direction. That would be truly inclusive. But just give us your imagination of what inclusive growth could look like, should look like, or in your wildest imagination, what is the one single most important factor when we talk about working towards inclusive growth? Shall we do that? Yeah? So, we can do it two ways. I can walk to you, or you can put up your hands. I'm fairly liberal. And there are mics there too. That's right. So shall we start? Anyone?
Sure, I'll start.
Okay, great. You want to use the mic, or I can come to you?
I can yell.
Yeah, okay. Just to be truly inclusive, since the audience has already gotten to know the panelists, just give us a very short introduction, your name, where you're from, and what is inclusive growth to you?
My name is Hardika. I'm the founder of Kinara Capital, part of financial inclusion. We provide SME financing, $2,000 to $20,000 to small businesses in India. For me, inclusive growth is actually about meritocracy and equality.
Okay, meritocracy and equality. Meritocracy of opportunities or meritocracy and of outcomes?
It's not an or answer, is it?
So sounds more like equality of access, you said.
So maybe I should defer. Okay, let me expand because it sounds like we need to have a conversation around this.
So I don't want to have a conversation at this stage, so that we can have, you know, more people getting into the conversation itself, and then later on, I think we can expand on that. Is that fair?
That's what I thought we were trying to achieve, so let's go for it.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? We started with a lady. We could do with a gentleman. Well, I have to come to you.
I actually really agree with what you said, but if you want to think about it in a more quantifiable way, I think it would be looking at growth at the macro level and then seeing how the growth of poor populations responds.
Okay, so growth at the macro level and looking at the extent of that growth affecting the poorer population, the disadvantaged population, right? Whether you agree, disagree with them, expand on it, and of course, your own definition of inclusive growth. Let's start with, of course, the gentleman on our panel, Bart.
Thank you. The exception. Thank you very much, Penny. This inclusive growth, I'm glad to see that it attracts such interest, although I notice a disproportionate share of the women in the audience compared to men. So maybe that has something to do with the concern about inclusiveness, and I'll get to that in some of my brief remarks. Inclusive growth in the last few years has, in the development sphere, taken over terms like pro-poor growth and some other expressions of how to advance the development process. And so you find a number of countries, we were having this conversation earlier, like in India, where it seems all of the talk is about inclusive growth. But finding a common definition of it, it remains elusive. It's the subject of intense academic debate within the NGO community, between NGOs and multilateral development banks and others. Now, ADB, for its part, we adopted a strategy in 2008 on how we were going to continue to support developing countries in Asia and the Pacific, address poverty and other challenges. And that forward-looking long-term strategy included as a strategic agenda inclusive growth. And so in our perspective, this long-term view is that inclusive growth is characterized by high levels of growth that at the same time also provide opportunities for a broad base of the population to benefit from the fruits of growth as well as to contribute to that growth. What we've seen in Asia, and this has been commented on earlier, this region has made extraordinary progress in reducing poverty and making other great gains on socioeconomic indicators. Nonetheless, according to one economic research paper done at ADB, there are still some 750 or so million people living below $1.25 a day. And so consider that as one measure of income poverty, but there's other aspects of poverty, non-income poverty we could call it, say access to basic services like water, sanitation, energy, and the numbers go far higher than that. In addition, if we consider those living on less than $2 a day, many people would still consider poor, and the number doubles from 750 million. So the point is, notwithstanding the tremendous growth, which has reduced the share of the population in poverty and improved lives, and as has been observed, lifted many into the middle class, not just in Singapore, but throughout the region, many have not benefited from the fruits of this growth. So from an ADB perspective, the path that Asia is on is not sufficiently inclusive, and moving forward, more needs to be done to make it more inclusive. So to us, having debated this internally, and the debate continues, at the moment we have a view that inclusive growth involves, on the one hand, expanding, creating economic opportunity. So this is kind of the growth angle, so expanding the opportunities. A second pillar, if you will, of three, is focused on broadening that access to opportunity. So this involves investing in, for example, education, in health, in social protection, and creating opportunities of access for the poor and the vulnerable and the marginalized to markets, to productive assets. So that's the second one, so broadening access. And the third one, for those who are left behind or struggling in poverty, who need assistance, whether it's temporary or longer term, social safety nets, stronger social safety nets are required. So these, for ADB, these are, if you will, the three pillars of how we see inclusive growth that emphasize it's not just about the economic growth rates, it's the trajectory, it's the direction of growth. If I could just take another minute to focus on, one, say, subset of inclusive growth, and that's on addressing issues of gender, equality. We have a policy on gender and development that requires gender considerations to be considered in all of our operations. From the country strategies, so the strategies we agree with our developing countries on how we'll provide support, and also in the design and implementation of specific projects. So we've set a target of 40% of our projects have to directly support gender equality. That's not to say 60% work against gender equality or don't benefit women, but some projects, maybe the average project, doesn't necessarily reduce inequalities between men and women. These 40%, this is meeting some specific criteria that are spelled out, specific measures that are taken, design features that make it a project that goes beyond just, say, providing water to to addressing, say, discrimination or inequalities within a particular area. So this target of 40%, we started below that a handful of years ago, and we've now reached 51% and continue to push on this. I see that my time's running short, so I'll just make one other observation. To ensure continued achievement of this mainstreaming target of 40%, that we continue to do this and don't get complacent, we're developing various guides and resource materials for colleagues who may not be gender experts. They're engineers, economists, they come with different backgrounds, they may not know about the social aspects of projects. So we're helping them with good practice, and we're also finding ways in some of the sectors where it's been more difficult to introduce gender mainstreaming. Think of building a power plant or transport projects, which may be less evident than if you're working in health or education. We're trying to find ways that we can make these more inclusive, and I can talk more about that during, say, the exchange or Q&A period of this session. So thank you, Penny.
Yeah, thank you, Bart. I just want to, highlight that I think there's something that was quite well thought out, which is your 3 pillars of inclusive growth. So for the benefit of the audience and also for our discussions later, could you repeat them? 1 is stronger social safety net. 2 is better access to opportunities. And the third one, and you said that more needs to be done.
Creating and expanding the opportunities. So that would be the first one. Creating and expanding opportunities in general, basically the growth perspective, and making sure that those opportunities are broadened through investment.
That sounds like the second one, which is access to opportunities.
Create the opportunities, broaden them for a wider group of the population, and the safety nets.
Okay, thank you. So it's first, the 3 pillars of inclusive growth, as we've learned from Bart, would be, number 1, creating the opportunities. 2, access to the opportunities. And 3, stronger safety nets. So, well, thank you for giving us some, ideas of how to progress towards that. But for now, I think we'll hear it from Rekha.
Well, friends, first of all, I would very much like to thank Doreen for allowing women's session to come up in this indirect manner. Though, of course, women's issues are always sidetracked, so we are in a smaller room, not in the main room, but that's okay. After 2020, perhaps we will get a main audience and main session. We are on the path, so that is understood. Well, I think I'm going to speak the voice of the people who are not present, because I've been working for the last 28 years. And when we talk of inclusive growth, I think first we need to think of the 4th pillar, which is be included in the growth of people you are trying to work on. Let me expand. The whole space, we have been hearing this new word, because every time the jargons come up, the social work space is for the benefit of the underprivileged. I think my understanding is correct here. But those underprivileged, how are we looking at them? Are we included in their growth? Means, are they going to accept us? We are an outsider for them, because people are looking at them as somebody, capacity building we were talking about yesterday. The word I've heard again and again is capacity building. What about expansion of our own understanding? Do we understand the people who we are working for? I'll give you a few examples. I have also learned from them only. From childhood, I was studying in a liberal school. I don't have any degree. University of Michigan, University of Oxford, none. I studied undergraduate program in my father's liberal college, which was quite not up to the mark, but nevertheless, it was. When you work with these people, when I started to work with these people, first thing I realized that I don't understand them. Because we had organized, I'll give you 2-3 instances. In 1994, when India had started opening up, and the first political unit of the democracy is called a panchayat, which works in the villages. I think you're familiar with that word. So when Rajiv Gandhi was bringing in that reform, I arranged, along with few people, a meet of 60 women who came from 100 panchayats. So when these women arrived, like today, we were having a health session. And we talked in detail about the various nutritious diet they should have. And focus came on vitamins and how the panchayat is going to distribute free vitamins. One of them raised her hand, like what Penny said just now, raise your hand. And we also had a moderator who said, what do you want? She said, you guys give us vitamin M. I didn't understand. I said, what is vitamin M? The whole audience clapped. They said, give us the money. The money which centuries of struggle has deprived us of. We women don't own land. It is the people who own land who have perpetuated, money. And we don't have money. Like just now, my friend, when Penny asked her to describe equality, she used a term, even I don't understand. What was the term? Something? Meritocracy. I don't understand. None of my village friends would understand. None of my social team would understand. Because in last 28 years, when I started working 28 years back, when I went to a village, I was told to wear a khadi sari, cotton sari, because otherwise I would be rejected. When I arrived in a group of 50 women, they were all sitting very happy, looking very nice, neat and clean. I said, they don't need any help. They are looking very healthy, happy, well-dressed women. Then I was told, they are very poor. I said, they're looking very lovely. They're wearing lovely, lovely clothes. They said, this sari they are wearing, are you aware what it cost? At that time until today, it cost 5 Singapore dollar. Then I went into detail. These women have a budget of $15 per year. They buy 3 saris in a year. 2 which they wear every day when they go out, and they wear a petticoat in the house or a gown in the house. And the 3rd sari is kept for important occasions. So this is the kind of poverty levels and the kind of dignity with which these people live. We must understand, if we talk of inclusive growth, first of all, who we are dealing with. When we are dealing with them, if we talk a lingo which they don't understand, I'm sorry, we are not going to succeed. Over here, in the past decade, after the CSR, which has started in front of us, a lot of money is coming to the NGO world, which has brought in great talent to this world. Means when we started working, we were working with women who didn't even know how to type, forget about the workers, forget about laptop or hard top. From earth pot, we were actually having water put in earthen pots. So we have seen the journey from earthen pot to laptop. It's existed in 3 different levels. And if I can go 100 years back, since the First World War, I would just divide, because I don't have much time, the women's struggle, which we are talking about inclusive growth, because for me, inclusive growth means empowered women. Because through empowered women, we have empowered homes, and through empowered homes, we have empowered society, and then empowered nations. So when we talk of 100 years of journey, I just look back and I would say my first generation, which included my mother and other people, strove for dignity. They only strived for dignity. My generation freed itself. And still, there are people who are still striving for the first level, which is dignity. But I would divide women's struggle into 3 in the last 100 years. First, dignity. Then came the second thing, freedom. When I became free, I could educate my daughter. I have just done BA, Bachelor's of Arts from a laborer's college. My father gave me dowry. He didn't give me education. When my daughter was 21, which was 1995, the whole family assembled and told my husband, what dowry are you going to give your daughter? I said, none. She's going to go to study in London. So I gave her education because I was free. And now she's empowered. She studied in Chicago. She was country head for USIBC, brought Obama to India. So what I'm trying to say is that my story is repeated at various levels, at various village levels. So I would like to bring out, especially to ADB and this August panel over here, that 4th pillar should be added. And that should be expanding understanding. Understanding who we are working for. And because the time is very short, so I have to bring in few points. Again, there are 3 worlds existing, my friends, in the space what we are talking. From yesterday, I've heard this new terminology, space. Now, in this space, there are 3 worlds which are existing. The world of the giver, the corporate, industrialist, high net worth individualist. I myself am a high net worth individual, so I understand that world very well. High net worth individuals and corporate and the givers. The second is bridge. I'm also a bridge because I'm running NGOs. And the 3rd world is of the recipients, people who are receiving. So earlier we used to have, when 20th century reverberated with two words, haves and have-nots, given by Marx. But 21st century is now talking about having the whole world equal. My friends, it's very important to have the whole world equal because America cannot survive with India because we are on the same globe. So if we have problems in our side of planet, they will also get affected. Climate change has proved that. So this world, the three worlds, the world of the giver, the world of the bridge, and the world of the receivers, they have to be unified. And we have to come up with a lingo which is absolutely understood by all the three worlds. And then we have to progress from there. And also, when I talk of women's issues, we talk of issues from womb to tomb, to the tomb. Because in India, as you know, in very many SAARC countries, women are not allowed to be born only. There are, I do not know how many people are aware here, that there is a state called Haryana, which is few kilometers away from New Delhi, the capital. There the feticide is so high, the average is 715 to 1,000 men. 715 women to 1,000 men. So as a result, women are being imported there from various states. So what I'm trying to say is that women's issues are very, very major. I had an opportunity because of my various positions to have a dinner with the Deputy Secretary General of UN in New York. And she confessed. She said, UN has failed completely in crisis resolving management. What has UN done? UN was supposed to solve Israel and Palestine, the issue, they have not done. India, Kashmir, not done. After that, Iraq, Iran, not done. What has UN succeeded in? Women. But let me say, UN has succeeded in women's issues, not because of their effort, but because of the women's own journey. The struggle of women. So I think Penny is looking at me with keen eyes, so I pass it on to the other people. Thank you.